to talk about this yourselves, because I'm sure all of you have something to bring. But coaching cultures are becoming quite widespread. So before I sort of go into the meat of it, I'd just like to explain, we are particularly excited because Joe's allowed us to have 4 webinars within November where we will be building up from today's intro and going into aspects of the introduction that we mentioned today in a little bit more depth, and about what we're doing in coaching cultures. So some of you might already have signed up to the 2nd, 3rd and 4th, and I will give you the dates at the end of this session. And please feel free to put any questions into the chat. As I say, there will be a breakout, so we'll have a chance to share some thoughts. And there's also going to be a short video, which, you know, I'd be interested in your thoughts from that. So without any further ado, I will get going. And as you can see, we're about energizing your team's potential, and building a coaching culture can facilitate that. And both Karen and I come from the belief that the team and individuals have the potential, it's just tapping into it. And the way we work in facilitating and working in team coaching, which we're both qualified in, helps to bring out that potential. So if we could move on to the next slide, please. So, you know, who, how, when, what, where, all those questions might be floating around. And throughout today, I planned to answer most of those. And if we go on to the next slide, one of the things I'd like to cover is, who are we, first of all? Give you a little bit of a brief intro into ourselves. Karen, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, it's right. I've unmuted myself. My name's Karen Jameson. I'm an HR consultant, coach, team coach, executive coach, trainer. I've worked in HR for just over 40 years. So man, boy in short trousers. I've been a coach for 17 years. I'm also a coach supervisor. So for me, a coaching approach and establishing a coaching culture in an organization is, it runs through me through and through. It's part of my approach.
Thanks, Karen. And quickly about me, I've always been in people development, management development, worked in consultancy with PwC, and through that had a learning and development responsibility, and moved myself into coaching. I love business and life coaching, executive coaching, and I've been doing that since about 2001. And now really want to start working with more teams, and also developing this idea of a coaching culture, so that we're not just coaching one or two or a few select people in businesses and organizations, but we're actually working, immersing ourselves in a coaching style of working, which has been shown to bring further benefits to businesses. And Karen and I have come together as like-minded souls, and can, you know, as a result of bringing two of us, bring some more synergy to it. So that's a bit about us. We've very much got sort of coaching backgrounds. Coaching's in our blood, as Karen said. And in 2015, Mena said, a team is not a problem that needs to be analysed and solved, but a potential to be unfolded. And that's where we're coming from, in that we feel we can open up those experiences. If we could move on, Karen, please. So what is our why? And you know, each of us have worked on our whys. Has anyone come across Simon Sinek, The Golden Circle? Quick show of hands. Okay, there's some of you that clearly have. Well, Simon Sinek talks about, you know, the what, the how, the why, get my teeth in, and the what and the how are actually quite relatively simple to articulate in our organizations, but it's the why. Why do I get out of bed in the mornings? You know, why do I love doing this? What is it in particular? And it's very much based on our values and beliefs. And Karen's going to pop into the chat a link to the Golden Circle for you to have a look at, for those who haven't come across it. And, you know, our why, we see ourselves as people that very much want to draw out more of that potential, because everyone's showing their potential, but there's always more to be brought out, and see ourselves as agile change partners, enabling clients to connect the dots and to ride the waves. And that's what our, on your wavelength is, has that metaphor about riding those waves. Having sailed over 40-foot plus waves, I can tell you that's quite an accomplishment to get to the other side. So that's a little bit about our why. And if we can move on to looking at our offerings, and what we would like to tell you is about the fact that we're looking at building strategy for a coaching culture, and doing it in a coaching culture way, and that is actually quite a transformative approach, not transactional. It's very much about us working with you, working with the organization in facilitating you to do the thinking and also the reflecting, because the reflecting is the more sustainable change. When you get deeper, if you think of an iceberg, you see the stuff above the waterline. That's your conscious stuff. That's what we're good at knowing. And where Karen and I like to work is under the waterline, and start to work with a lot of the unconscious stuff, because it's the unconscious stuff that prevents us from sort of moving forward, and therefore supporting that transformation process. And one of the ways we do that is we work with a number of diagnostic tools, and one in particular called Performance Climate System, which we will be looking at in more detail in webinar 3. In fact, someone from Performance Climate System is going to join us. It takes you through a diagnostic, both the leader and the team, and asks certain questions, which then provides, it's an assessment tool, provides a map, and looking at where the gap might be between what the leader understands about the business and the individuals. And we feel it's a really powerful process for enabling some challenging questions and some reflection to take place, and to really think, can we move towards a coaching culture? Because of course, Karen and I spend some time with our client in the beginning to say, is this what you want? Because you do need to want to go there, because it is quite, altering your culture is quite a process in itself. And there are business benefits, and we'll be looking at those as we go through. So a development strategy aligned to your business strategy, and a coaching culture strategy, which allows you to behave in a slightly different way in the organization, people enjoying themselves more at work and performing better. So moving on, if we look at how do we do this, if we could have the next slide, please, Karen. So how and where? And as far as we're concerned, we'd much prefer to be doing it face-to-face. Yet, of course, we all know with the lockdowns, the pandemic, some of that had to go into hybrid. And so we can be very flexible. And ideally, as I say, it would be with you and working in a team coaching way, which is taking the team as a collective, working on your collective objectives around developing a coaching culture and what that really means. And you are our organizations, our clients are the experts. We aren't the expert in knowing those answers. We are the experts in working with you as coaches, executive coaches and team coaches who can provide that psychologically safe environment. And I'm sure that's a term that most of you are used to, particularly in HR, because that's where you're allowed to be vulnerable. And if you can be vulnerable, you can build trust. And if you can build trust, you can build a team, and you can be so much more successful than you are at the moment. So what I'd like to do, if we move on to the next slide, is actually recognize that we know we're in a time of massive change, and we've got COP26 happening at the moment. We can see it in our climate that things are changing. We've had COVID. Our businesses have had to face massive change, and what's come out of that is something around, well, we've had IQ, we've had EQ, and now we've got AQ, which is around adaptability quotient. And this is another of the tools that we can offer in our process of managing your transition and transformation into a coaching culture. So this video was that we're about to show you and share with you was put together by AQAI, which is an adaptability quotient business looking at how they can support people become more adaptable. And I'm qualified to use the assessment. And you know, there are things like in the next 10 years, we are going to see more change and than we have in the last 100 regards jobs and careers and what people will do and how they will do it. And I think we see that as another reason for looking at how you operate in your business, because people skills are number one for the 21st century. Leaders who provide an environment where others can create, innovate, and come up with solutions rather than being the hero and having all the solutions themselves is what's needed for the 21st century. Gone is that person who is just telling you what to do. It's more about working together as a team, a powerful team. If you think about a skein of geese, one flew over us recently and they're all squawking away in a V shape, and the one at the front will drop back and let the one from the back come to the front. So it's about really working your leadership qualities to bring out leadership skills within everybody, and a coaching culture supports that process. So Karen, if we could go into this video, we're not going to show it all, but I'd just like you to reflect on some of the things that are being said. It's quite, you know, it's not specifically about coaching culture. It's quite broad, but I think for me, it makes me tingle a bit and think about what's the future going to bring and how can we work with it. And it's got some strong messages in it for us all. I think it calls itself the fourth industrial revolution. And it was, as I say, put together by AQAI, who are providing a hell of a lot of research around adaptability quotient as well as an assessment process. You're right there, Karen. I don't know how many of you actually run webinars, but there's always something about tech bits that challenge us a little bit. Thank you, Estelle. I can see you nodding and smiling. It's always, we're all human. So here we go. Enjoy, and I'd love to hear your thoughts afterwards. Have you got any sound, Karen? Karen, did you
had time to adjust? We've had time to adapt, and we haven't got that time and that luxury anymore. Things are happening so quickly, we've got to catch up with that curve. That's really...
For some reason, there appears to be no sound. Can nobody hear it at all? Can anybody hear it at all?
We could just hear it before you wound it back, Karen. The sound was coming on then.
Okay, I'll try again.
Hard for
our
brains to understand. You know, can we even imagine what the world was like 100 years ago and think about the change from there to now as being from now to 10 years time? I mean, that's just a real difficult challenge to imagine.
I've been alive since 1944, so there's been a lot of change, political change, economic change, a lot of technological change.
We've had time to adjust. We've had time to adapt, and we haven't got that time and that luxury anymore. Things are happening so quickly, we've got to catch up with that curve.
The crazy thing is it's happening right now. So at this moment,
right now, the impact of technology, the impact of demographic shifts, the impact of globalization, of climate change. As the leaders of the future, you have to have the ability to see the invisible and to believe the unbelievable.
I've heard it said so many times that the only thing that is always there is change, and that's true, but I think what's very different about this era is change is accelerating. So our ability to be able to adapt in an uncertain environment is going to be more critical now than ever. It's how do we change our thoughts and behaviors to uncertainty? How do we react to that is going to be critical to our survival.
We're in liminal space right now. We're between before coronavirus and after coronavirus. And we're kind of looking at it like this space in between is holding until we can return to before coronavirus.
This idea of we have always done it this way, why do we have to change, has killed so many organizations and has killed innovation in so many different places.
Look at Kodak, right? People went to them, they came up with the ideas, they knew what to do, but they were not nimble and quick. They were not seeing the writing on the wall. They chose to do business as usual, and then they became extinct.
Amazon and Radio Shack. Radio Shack, retail presence, selling the things that they sold from their same suppliers. You get what you get at the markup, and that's it. Amazon started out selling books, then sold everything, and then became a platform because they enabled anyone to sell their merchandise on Amazon. It's infinitely scalable, and there's a ton of data to inform possible next moves based on what's going on.
Part of being human and being alive, I think, is having the innate ability to adapt.
It's not like this is new to human beings. The fact that we're 8 billion people means that a lot of us are really adaptable, and the people before us were really adaptable. You have to have 100% ownership of who you are and where you're going.
The global grand challenge in our world today, how can enterprises adapt to the challenges that we have? Because they have the most leverage, they have the most resources. And so if we can empower them through the adaptability lens, I think we have a lot to be optimistic about.
So in order to improve anything, you have to measure it. So when we started to look at adaptability as a key component, and everybody's saying, this is the thing, this is what we need to unlock and understand to thrive in the future.
I have a different methodology to assess startup founders, and it's not complicated. I look for signs of one specific trait, not IQ, not EQ. It's adaptability. How well a person reacts to the inevitability of change, and lots of it. Adaptability itself is a form of intelligence, and our adaptability quotient, or AQ, is something that can be measured, tested, and improved.
The whole concept of AQ, adaptability quotient, we broke it down into 3 areas: ability, character, and environment. So AQ ability is how and to what degree do I adapt?
It's a choice. Many people don't realize it's a choice, but I think it's a choice about how not only you want to react to certain situations, but what kind of people you want to surround yourself with.
When people used to say things were impossible, my answer would be, okay, maybe it's impossible for you. It doesn't mean it's impossible for me or for someone else. You have to look at, is it possible from the laws of physics as we know them? And then the second is it a good idea? There's very little that's impossible. The world that we're living in today, where you can speak to your phone, or rockets are launching and then landing back down, AI, robotics, 3D printing, synthetic biology, augmented virtual reality, these technologies are enabling us to make those impossible dreams more and more possible every day.
AQ character, it's who adapts and why.
Some people will adapt because they're motivated by big goals, by growth, by achievement. For the others, will adapt because I have to adapt. It's a duty. I must, otherwise I will lose my job. And you are actually not that because you adapt perhaps in a very systematic way. It's just your character, but your manager must know about that.
The leaders right now in the middle of this virus are the ones who can say, how are my team members doing? What's going on in their lives? How do I inspire their human potential? How do I establish trust and psychological safety? So they can tell me if they're having a problem. Because right now, as we're all working remotely, a small problem becomes a big problem if you don't address it.
I think there's new roles in organizations that perhaps need to be filled. Chief Future Officer. Who has a Chief Future Officer right now? What are we doing in Horizon 3? What are we doing way out in 10 years' time? What does our company look like?
What matters is your constant focus on every day asking yourself, are you better off today intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually than you were yesterday? Never letting go of intellectual curiosity. The day you lose curiosity is the day you die.
You know, your eyes can only see and your ears can only hear what your brain is looking for. In psychology, we call that selective attention. You shouldn't overly value your current identity. You shouldn't overly value your current perspectives, because hopefully your future self sees things better than you currently are. They've got a different situation, different perspectives, higher levels of wisdom. There's a really good quote from Alain de Botton, the British philosopher, but he basically said, if you're not embarrassed by who you were 12 months ago, you didn't learn enough.
AQ environment is about when does somebody adapt and to what degree.
You know, when Darwin talked about survival of the fittest, it wasn't about competition. It wasn't about only the strong survive. It was the literal word of fit, right? To fit within the ecosystem.
People spend 2/3 of their time in the office working. If they have a frustrating experience, a depressing experience, an experience that sucks when they have to go to work, then probably their life will be impacted in the same way.
The leader's job is to grow people. Right? So a leader not only has to understand themselves, but is to get all of their employees at all levels to understand themselves and be able to adapt better.
By empowering people, by not penalizing them for failures, I think an innate human quality to adapt could be freed up.
We know that we need to prepare ourselves, but one didn't know how to prepare. So it was to my surprise that, you know, such a thing like AQAI was out there that would enable us to measure ourselves, to benchmark and compare our data against what is considered to be best practice in the area of change and adaptability. So that was one of the key drivers for us on the UN and the UX system at large. So UN celebrates 75 years right now. There's a lot of things that we have done over these years that we need to change.
We're at the ground 0.1 of assessment and measure, and we'll do it through a conversational chatbot. So you'll have a 25-minute, half-an-hour conversation, and we're working to get that as natural as possible, and you'll then get a score, so an AQ score, and you also get a bit of a profile. But taking that data only shows you that snapshot.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Well, you know, some of the things that jump out from me, that I love the idea of a chief futures officer. Maybe we need a chief futures coaching culture officer, but things that were talked about, you know, the fact that we just don't know what the roles will be for the future, psychological safety and how that's key to fostering a coaching culture. The other thing that I heard was, you know, we need to be 100%, take 100% ownership for who we are and where we're going. And it's only through having a coaching culture that we can achieve that. And, you know, this idea that about looking after us as humans and the well-being aspect. And for me and Karen, adaptability effectively equals coaching culture. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments you would like to briefly add at this point before we move into our breakout session very soon? No? Okay, well, the link for that video will be put into, Karen will kindly put it into the chat. So if you want to have a look at it more, you can do. So if we go to the next slide, and I was mentioning earlier that trust is one of the biggest elements of being able to develop a coaching culture. We need to be communicating. We need to be sharing with each other how we're feeling, what, you know, and contributing to the strategy, not just being told what it is. So if, and even further than that, the coaching culture helps you to build even more trust. Yet, you know, it is important that there is an element of trust, there's an element of team working going on. But if you look at this table, this gives you some really good reasons for how a coaching culture not only increases trust, but it improves the performance of your business. You know, fewer sick days, less burnout, more engagement, more alignment to company purpose. And if you think about a lot of these things, I suspect most of you have read and are aware of the Great Resignation stuff that's been about, and there's a high level of people that are resigning. And again, that's another, a lot of organizations just aren't connecting with their teams and their employees in these really challenging times. So actually we need to be communicating even harder. And 11% more empathy. Well, you know, probably a lot of people are starting from zero, a lot of businesses. And organizations with a strong coaching culture do achieve a higher level of engagement, 61%. This research comes from ICF, which is the Institute of Coaching Foundation, and HCI, which is a HR research body that I use a lot. And there's 46% revenue growth from industry peers. And actually, you know, having coaching as a line item in the budget. I wonder how many of you do actually have that. Could we move on to the next slide, please, Karen? So at this point, I'd like to put you into breakout groups, hopefully four or five. We've got 22 of us, so yes, we can have 4 or 5 in each group, a couple of 5s. And I'd like you to talk amongst yourselves about what experience or knowledge do you have of a coaching culture in your organizations. If it's not coaching culture, do you hear about coaching? Do you offer coaching? You know, and what benefits do you see of having a business that's aligned to a coaching culture? Karen, are we ready to go to put people into different groups? And I look forward to you coming back with your questions and thoughts, which we can share before finally wrapping up.
How long in the groups, Susie?
Oh, so the time now is 1 o'clock. So shall we say, can we say 6 minutes? Is that enough? Yeah, 6 minutes. Sorry, Karen.
I think everybody might be back. Susie?
Okay, great. Good to see you all. Come back from that. Who would like to share any thoughts or experiences you've had? The group I joined, the couple there, both got some interesting things to share, I believe. But yes, anyone else who'd like to share their questions or thoughts?
Go on, Phil.
You're on mute.
Muted.
Sorry. Yeah, we had a really interesting discussion in the group, actually, where one of the participants was talking about their organisation, saying they had really good foundations in place and training programs in coaching. It was certainly encouraged, but there wasn't the support from the top, and we didn't really get too far in this. But I think one of the feelings was there's a lack of understanding about what coaching is. And I think this is one of the issues that we have. When we talk about a coaching culture, what do we mean by that? What's the difference between coaching and mentoring or training and other development techniques? So I think this is one of the key issues, because if the people at the top of the business don't understand that, then they're not going to be able to walk the talk and demonstrate a coaching culture, which clearly you need the people with any cultural initiative. You need the buy-in from the senior execs.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I was just about to grab Peter Hawkins' Coaching Culture book. I don't know if you've come across Peter Hawkins, but I worked with him about 20 years ago. But he makes it really clear, and this is what Karen and I work to too, is we start at the top. It's absolutely essential. And it's going to be pointless otherwise. But one of the things Peter Hawkins does say is that going through a culture change is not a quick process either. It's not a quick fix. But it's really heartening to hear what you're saying, Phil. It's also very interesting because I've got you twice. I've got you as Phil and I've got you as Philip Addison. So we've got 2 of you, which is really lovely today.
Yeah.
Double dose. But yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. So yeah, it's not a quick fix, but we very much want to work from the top get the leaders' sanction on it and passion around it before we start working downwards. Anyone else would like to? Karen, sorry, did you want to come in there at all?
No, I was just going to say I absolutely agree with Phil. You know, it's like any change initiative. If you haven't got the buy-in from the top, if you haven't got senior leader understanding about what the journey is, where you want to get to, what success looks like, then you're pushing a rock uphill. And so, you know, Susie and I start at the top of the organisation before anything else happens. So yeah, completely agree with Phil. Good points.
Anyone else like to add to that? I know Sabrina and Kenny, in your little group, you had quite a lot to say about coaching culture, sort of progress within your business organisations.
Yeah, we had talked about, we had both been looking at how to upskill managers to make sure that they were capable of coaching. And one of the things that we had people called team coaches, but they weren't coaches. They were there just to quality monitor. And therefore it was having to change the whole mindset of the whole of that division to think about coaching and the term of what coaching is. So we had to strip back to basics for them. And that was what our cultural shift was at that point. And we were looking at how do we keep that going and build in a learning culture as well now.
I think there is a lot of people don't understand what coaching is, and it's not until you experience it that you go, oh yes, the light bulb comes on. I'm thank you for your sharings and contributions, and I'd love to carry on talking about this, and happy to, you know, we can share our contact details if you would like to speak more, but as you know, there are more webinars coming up, but I think we need to move on. Karen, if we can go to the next slide, please. And these are just the key competencies required for 21st century. I don't know if anyone's come across Forbes and this information before, but if you look at it, you know, adaptability is one of them, but a lot of them are about people skills, you know, that ability to have grit. And it is about transformational leadership. You may remember I've mentioned that we work to a transformative process. So it's not transactional. And resilience, you know, and the ability to self-motivate and to motivate the organization as well. So if we move on from that, you know, who is it for? Well, personally, I think it's for any organization, but probably any organization that has more than 10 employees, so you can have a team. So it's for SMEs, it's for corporations, and clearly the bigger you are, the larger the tanker to perhaps make that shift. So moving on, please, Karen. So, you know, we wanted to just give you a little taste today, a little introduction to what coaching culture is about, where, you know, what we're doing, how we're working with it. And as I said, there'll be a lot more detail. We will start to go into more detail around the diagnostics. Well, first of all, sorry, the coaching culture model itself, and also looking at diagnostic process, so the performance climate system, the AQME assessment process, and we work with a number of other assessment tools that can really open up the sort of conversation in businesses and that reflection. And finally, and most importantly, is looking at the implementation and what's going to be the return on investment, because research shows there is. So I hope you will come and join us again for webinar next Thursday, and then on the 18th and the 25th. Before we finish, are there any sort of questions or burning thoughts that anyone wants to share?
I had a message from somebody saying that the link that I put in for the Simon Sinek link wasn't working. So I'm just going to stop sharing slides and disappear off and pick up the link and then post it in the chat box, if that's okay.
And also, if people Google Simon Sinek Golden Circle, it'll come up as a YouTube. It's a really useful YouTube. I'd just like to share what Rodrigo's just shared in the chat. I don't know if everyone else has seen it. I believe the importance of the why is critical in coaching, training employees, show them a purpose, motivation, and be with. So thank you for that support, Rodrigo, because we believe that's absolutely essential. Understanding and being able to articulate that is so important in moving forward with coaching culture. Sorry that link didn't work, but as I say, if you Google Golden Circle, Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K.
All the great and inspiring leaders.
Oh, there we are. I think Karen's found it. He's talking to us. Anyhow, Joe, thank you so much for letting us come on today. And thank you everyone for attending. I hope you've gone away with some little thoughts and gems, and it'll encourage you to come and join us next week. We will be providing an information pack at the end of the 4 webinars with the slides and other information, and it's coming at the end because we hope that will encourage you to come and join all 4 of our sessions. I saw a lovely smile on Anna's face just then, so thank you. I hope we see your faces again, and enjoy the rest of the week. Thanks, Joe. I'll pass over to you.
Thanks, everybody. Karen, if you want to email me the link, I'll be sending an email out to everybody that's attended, and I'll just add that onto the email.
Okay, I'll do that.
So yeah, just to finish, thanks very much everyone for attending. I will put a LinkedIn post as we normally do, so any comments to the LinkedIn post would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, hope to see everyone next week. I'll put a link to the session next week if you haven't already signed up and you want to. And yeah, look forward to seeing everyone next week. But thanks, Karen and Susie.